the only podcast by wrestling fans that don't hate wrestling. You are listening to the Wrestling Rewind. My name is Darrell O'Connor. Welcome to the show. I am not alone. I am joined by the one, the only Mr. 1-0, Martin Herty. How are things, Martin?
Grand, Dara. A magical thing has happened. My missus, if there's something I want to get her into, like a TV program or something I really like, I can't say that to her.
Okay.
A guaranteed way to get her to not watch something is for me to recommend it. But if if her friends or her work ones bring it up, suddenly it's the best thing in the world. So if there's something I want her to watch, I just kind of avoid mentioning it and hope that someone else brings it up for her. And in her work during the week, they were all raving about What We Do in the Shadows. So now
great show.
Oh, I love it. Now she's mad for What We Do in the Shadows, so I actually get to watch it. So
I love that show.
Delighted.
It's a very underrated show and underappreciated show, but it is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's one of the last ones to do the mockumentary thing really well. It's become a wee bit stale in more recent years, but I think they were the last one to do it really, really well.
No, absolutely. I haven't watched the new season, but I think I'm due a rewatch. But folks, we are on YouTube, we're on Twitch, along with also being on Phoenix 92.5 FM, True Ben channel. We haven't been live for 2 years. So we're actually trying live tonight here. So if you sound a little bit different, that's why. Thank you to everybody who subscribed over on YouTube. If you haven't, please go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com or nerdtoknowmedia on YouTube, thewrestlingrewind.com. They'll get you to the same place. Is your first time checking us out, you can in the chat as well. Leave your comments and all that kind of stuff as well. We will read them out.
The filthier the better.
Well, we can't read out the filthy ones on the internet, but they will be on the chat.
Me and Dara will privately appreciate them.
Well, they're also on the screen as well, so that's where they can be. So the chat is there. If anyone wants to use it, feel free. But we have a lot to talk about today, Martin. I'm excited. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about tonight because
it's rare.
I don't want to bury the lead.
It's rare that we get to talk about not a show, not a pay-per-view, not a match that we've never watched before, a promotion we've never seen before.
An entire promotion that lasts about a month.
Is that it?
Well, once I saw it, I was like, I need Martin to see this, and I need to get his reaction for it, purely for my entertainment alone. But before we get into that, again, there's quite a lot of news to get through this week. Taking a break from like digging way back, but kind of more recent stuff with the thing we're going to be talking about. But before we get into that, TNA are making all the news, Martin. TNA are breaking ground that, in fairness, AEW did get there first. A little bit disappointed in how it went in certain ways. In other ways, it was really cool. But never did I think that the TNA Women's Champion would be in a WWE main event as the TNA World Champion. Not only that, NXTTNA is the greatest thing that shouldn't work. It's the most obvious thing in the world, but it just works. When I saw Jordynne Grace last year in Glasgow, I was like, this woman is a megastar. And she'd beat Naomi, who was wrestling as Trinity, and I was sad about that because I do like Naomi quite a lot. Anyone who listens to the show knows that. But Jordynne Grace is special.
No shame losing to Jordynne Grace. I would lose to Jordynne Grace.
Oh, man. I mean, look, it was what it was. She hadn't captured the belt yet, but obviously that's where they were going. And she is just phenomenal. Really is. But shocked the world by coming out on NXT and out challenging for the NXT title. The question I have for you, Martin, is what did you think about this? Does it, like, the pay-per-view actually looks quite good. I'm not going to lie. The NXT show has a lot of really good matches, so we probably will have to watch it. But is this something that you expected? Is this something that you want more of? And kind of how does it play into? Like, what's the end game here, do you think?
Well, I mean, the actual show itself was pretty cool. Yeah, I always like seeing wrestlers not in their natural environment. You know,
right?
So, like, even if you're not a big fan of WCW or if you're not a big fan of WWE, like the first time you saw Hulk Hogan on WCW is still like just a monumental, like, what is happening type moment. So I really enjoyed it from that perspective. What it'll be, like what it'll become, I don't know. I guess, are you expecting her to win the title at this pay-per-view?
So,
I mean,
so
that would be a hell of a statement.
So here's what they should do, right? Whether they do it or not, I don't really know. But I mean, Shawn Michaels is booking it, and he does seem to give a lot more leeway here than we have in the past. Again, I have really bad hay fever at the moment, guys. So if I'm kind of sniffy and snotty, that's why I apologize. But nothing I can do about it. I've tried literally everything, so nothing I can do about it. But the point I was making is Shawn Michaels is kind of willing to bend on this a little bit. Now, here's what I would do, and I think this is I'm not going to go on record and make one of my predictions, but
because I'm going to have to ask you in a couple of minutes to go on record about a prediction, so I'll let you off with this one.
Okay, thank you. But I do think this is a strong hunch of what might happen. Jordynne wins.
Oh,
right?
Jordynne wins. Bold.
No, Jordynne wins. Then on the TNA show, she's doing an open challenge. Her belt gets won, right? And then at the pay-per-view, they kind of swap.
Oh, but swapsies.
Yeah, I think that's
not like a Becky Lynch, Charlotte
Flair. I think like a belt for belt. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Because here's the thing, it doesn't hurt anyone for Jordynne Grace to hold the NXT belt for for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then give it right back. She will end up on NXT eventually. I guarantee
it doesn't.
She absolutely will.
It doesn't hurt for the whole belt. Like, even to fans who don't know her, Jordynne Grace is such a presence. Like, the minute you see her, if you're a WWE fan, you've never watched TNA in your life, you don't watch any other promotions, the minute you see Jordynne Grace, you'll be like, star. That's a star. That's a world champion. Without any backstory, without any video package, if Jordynne Grace comes out and beats your world champion, you would absolutely accept it.
And that's it. And that's why I think her winning, it's not only that it makes sense, it's that it's like a legitimate kind of like, oh, whoa, okay, that's...
Well, if they're serious about this partnership, what a hell of a way to to make a kind of a mission statement, to go straight in with the TNA star winning the top title in your promotion. Like, it will put to bed in one match. It will put to bed all the kind of more cynical, oh yeah, such and such from TNA is coming on, but they're never going to actually win the title. Like, exactly. If they do this straight off the bat, it throws everything else into question.
And I think that's something that's actually worth going for. It's a thing that, like, okay, we've never actually seen this before. It's completely different. It's like a very much a game changer, and it's one thing that I wish we've seen this before, where the bigger company will kind of absorb the other company, and be like, oh, we're taking everything. It's like, okay, we've seen that. What we've never seen is the smaller company come in and take the title. When CM Punk won the belt years ago, and he's like, I might go to New Japan and defend it, He did.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That would have been really cool, though. Matt Cardona has done this kind of thing on the indies, but it's never been at this scale, It's kind of like, maybe down the line, what would be cool if you have someone from WWE go to AEW, AEW comes over, wins the WWE belt or whatever. It's kind of that, that might happen. This might open up some doors down the line, but right now it actually is happening, and it actually is happening with NXT and TNA, which is very cool. It's a very, very cool thing to do. We've never seen this before. It opens up all the fan booking, all the running away with yourself, that kind of thing. And also, I mean, Jordynne Grace is awesome. We're getting some really, really cool matches, and it's genuinely making me want to watch this pay-per-view. So fair play to them. But not only is she on NXT, which is a big thing. Here's the thing, actually. Apparently, the folks backstage in the NXT didn't even know that she was coming out. Nobody knew. Her, Triple H, and the top guys in TNA knew. And apparently, they had Alexa Bliss's music queued up in the rehearsal.
I suppose that's another kind of indicator about how seriously they're taking her. Because if they thought she was a nobody, or if they thought nobody would know who she is, they wouldn't have made any effort to kind of cover up the fact that she was there. So I suppose it's another sign that maybe they are taking this a wee bit more seriously than previous
Invasions.
I didn't want to say invasions because
no. So you have to.
It
Yeah,
has
you have
such
to.
it has such a bad aftertaste now.
But the reason why it has such a bad aftertaste is because there was a crazy man running it.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like Shawn Michaels and Triple H know what they're doing. They're like, okay, we've been there. And also they have the hindsight of every other time this has been done, with the exception of the TNA AEW little arc that they did, which was I really enjoyed. It's a complete disaster, like a complete train wreck. But it's definitely fun. But not only was she there, but TNA had their 20th anniversary of Impact. That's amazing, man. Like
That's class.
TNA are like over 20 years old. They're 22 years old, technically 23 years old, depending on where you count. But Impact itself is 20 years old. Now here's the thing. Look, I love TNA, right? I don't know how they're 20 years old. They survived so much.
It's wild.
It's insane. What, like I'm thrilled, but
stuff that would have killed lesser companies 20 times over.
It's amazing. They survived Bischoff, Hogan, Vince Russo
Hogan,
3 or 4 times. Losing TV deals, getting TV deals, being sold,
weekly
fans leaving twice. The pay-per-views like Hardcore Justice. You have to hand it to them, man. Like there was a joke going when I used to do the Rescue International desk, which some of those shows are on this feed now. That when TNA went out of business, I'd write the book on TNA. I'm probably never going to write that book because I don't think it's going to happen.
No, they're and I say this in a complimentary way. They are the cockroaches of pro wrestling.
I have to say, look, it really is a credit to them.
Nuclear apocalypse will happen, and all that'll be left is Twinkies, cockroaches, and
we're live from the impact zone.
The impact zone, the literal impact zone. This is where the missiles hit.
But that's it. I mean, that really seems to be the case. Like all these they're now longer on the air. Even Impact is now longer on the air than Nitro, than ECW.
Wild, isn't it?
It's insane. It's like how did this happen? But also, again, I'm really glad that it did. Everyone talks about competition, and there's tribalism from the ECW, definitely was from the ECW guys, from the AEW guys, and from the WWE guys nowadays, where it's all like, oh, this is better, and I'm just like, I love TNA. It's great, and the fact that it is 20 years old, it's wild. But without them being around, things would have been very, very different, and I don't think we'd be in the position that we are now.
No, it's like we have always said, whatever disagreements we have always said that wrestling, no matter what, needs an alternative. It needs competition. It needs nothing was worse for wrestling than a monopoly. So
absolutely,
yeah,
no, absolutely. And
TNA was the kind of a torchbearer for that, for, like you said, basically for 20 years, like for the whole, from WCW died, the only alternative a lot of people had was TNA.
WWE. No, but
tell me, did it last longer than WWE?
Well, listeners of the show and all, WWE lasted about a year, and then became TNA. So,
but it's wild when you think of it. How many promotions out there have lasted, a year, a couple of months, a couple of weeks? Like a wrestling promotion is a notoriously difficult thing to keep afloat, and the fact that they've been doing it for so long, when a lot of the coverage they get has been like people highlighting perhaps their less glorious moments.
The thing about it is, it's like
they stuck it out.
But the thing about it is, like, when you look at their legacy, and it's weird to use that word now because they are so successful. Like, they found their niche, but when you look at their legacy, it's AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, Christian Cage. Half of the WWE main stage roster are TNA guys. Half the AEW roster are TNA guys. It's like the modern wrestling is built on the back of TNA. This small company that somehow survived what, as you said, killed lesser companies. I mean, the fact that Hogan was there and it's
Yeah,
still surviving is like, whoa,
death knell
okay.
for anything normally.
That's it. And then Russo came back several times. You're like, oh my God, okay,
His
fair play to him.
zombie he is.
That's it, So look, I'm not going to go any further with this show because I do actually want to watch it and I haven't seen it yet. It was out last night. So
Oh, it's
I
happened, has it?
it happened last night. Yeah, so if I
Oh,
scroll down, it will
you'll
ruin
see
it.
the results.
So I
Right,
don't
right.
want to see the results. So we're probably going to cover this next week, folks. But I just want to say, super excited about it. It's awesome. Great for TNA. I know they had a bit of a bump there where they made some weird decisions and kind of cooled off, but they definitely seem now with this Jordynne Grace thing with NXT.
Well,
I'm very excited to see.
before we finish on the subject of TNA, because I
Yeah,
am keen to, we've got a bit of a video game review coming up.
a little bit.
So I am keen to talk about that. But before we get off the subject of TNA altogether,
Okay.
here's the question I had for you. Here's the big prediction I want you to make, because
Okay, interesting. I
for
wasn't
for
expecting
long
this. Go on.
for long term listeners, Dara has had a hell of a run of predictions the past 2 years, really.
It's wild, yeah, it really is.
So in the
Okay.
past couple of weeks, we've seen obviously the very sad firing of Scott D'Amore. People were not happy about, but it turns out that a lot of other less well known backstage people have also been let go in the past couple of weeks. People who deal with like pretty big roles like live events and marketing and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And a lot of this seems like the kind of cost cutting that WWE was doing
Before they got
before
sold.
their big merger.
Now, I
So
did
my
say this.
question
I
is,
did say this. Now, here's the thing, Ryan. I did already
like,
go on record and say that they were going to do this.
uh, so here we go. There's my question: Is TNA, is this a partnership, or is TNA are they kind of testing the waters and being prepped for a sale?
I believe I already said that they were. Um, but I'm going to put a caveat on this. I don't think they're going to be hard sold, going under the WWE banner.
Yeah.
What I think will happen here is I think they will be sold like the way ECW was independent for years.
Yes.
Even though ECW wasn't independent, run almost exclusively by Vince, and nobody knew about it. So I think that's what's going to happen. And it honestly wouldn't shock me. I think obviously they'll scale back on stuff they don't need because WWE have those.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like the all the people they got rid of, like really um successful people. Like apparently the guy who they fired who does their live events. Apparently he used to do the live events for Cirque du Soleil. So these are like really qualified people who are very good at their jobs, and the only reason to get rid of them is if you're in a company that already has somebody doing that.
Well, I'll put it this way: the company that they're already under is like a major partner, if not like um heavily associated with Endeavor anyway. So it's not too far outside the realms of possibility. I do think that there is more to this than has been let on. That there is the working relationship obviously has a lot more to this than just, oh yeah, they're doing the Forbidden Door thing. But then again, we don't know how much WWE has been invested in TNA the whole time. And there is a case of, well, how did they survive? Getting conspiratorial here. How did they actually survive all these things that should have killed the company? You have to ask yourself that.
Yeah.
They've never been hostile to TNA. WWE have never really been
No.
hostile to TNA.
No.
There's one or two jabs, all right, but that was never at the company. It was usually like, you know, at Christian Cage or something randomly. Um, so yeah, I would say a sale is very likely. What that sale looks like is something else. I don't think it's going to be like the shutdown. They're going to show up on Raw, and it's going to be a third brand. I think it's going to be its own thing, owned by WWE, but not owned by WWE. If that makes sense, it
Yeah.
won't be
Yeah.
WWE
Well,
TNA.
if they're going to try and build it up and run some sort of invasion angle, you can't do an invasion angle if it is WWE TNA.
Yeah,
It has
you
to
can't do
be
that.
its own. It has to be at least in kayfabe its own thing.
But then again, like, here's the thing: kayfabe wouldn't stretch itself that much because TNA has always been its own thing. I think like history is a great teacher and failure is a great teacher. And the failure of the invasion angle and then the failure of WWE CW, like they're big lessons. And the lesson is like people like TNA because it's TNA. Would they like it if WWE took it over and gave it money and made sure it was stable? Yeah. Would they like it if they changed it to its own thing? Absolutely not. So that's the danger. I think it's the way Tony Khan is running Ring of Honor, for better or worse, where he's just kind of leaving Ring of Honor to be Ring of Honor. That's fine.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
totally fine. Like, I mean,
And
there are things.
that's like you said, that's working better for them than when they really tried to integrate it.
Yeah,
And
you can't really
they
do
have
that.
their guys spending a lot of time, on Dynamite, who are Ring of Honor guys, and that, and it really kind of irked a lot of people.
Yeah, like
Um,
you can do it, but if you're going to do that, it has to be its own thing.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, if like, okay, for example, TNA when TNA broke off into like Global Force Wrestling and Impact Wrestling, well, why people didn't support that was because it was still TNA, and it's always like I was, hanging out with people in TNA last year at Glasgow, and they were saying, yeah, it's always been TNA backstage, even when
Yeah,
it was Impact Wrestling, it was still TNA, and that mindset I think is something that is in the core fan base of these things, right? So same in ECW. ECW was ECW. People knew what that was. Ring of Honor is the same thing. If you're going to have something that's completely different but using these elements, it has to be its own thing. They'd have to set up a new brand. Even NXT itself, when NXT was kind of transitioning from the sport into what it became, where it was like a proto AEW, that took a very long time for people to warm up to it. And then they really got
yeah,
passionate about it. And then it changed again. And that really annoyed people because it's like you just changed the product. So I think enough to wrap up on this, I think enough time has passed and enough failures of these big projects, these big mergers have been done where they're like, look, we know what works, we know what doesn't work. And yeah, to answer your question, I'll go on record and say is TNA being sold? Yes, more than likely. But I don't expect a bunch of lads from Impact to run out, start attacking uh someone on Raw. I don't think that, or having a versus pay per view or something like that. It won't happen. But what could happen is, and what probably is going to happen, you'll see talent show up in different places, which would be awesome.
yeah,
Unique matches which we wouldn't see anywhere else, and maybe the title showing up at different points. But how this becomes successful is the Impact Wrestling is its own thing. It's its own promotion run by its own people, and you never actually really know that's WWE. Don't have it on the network if you really have to, have it on Netflix or something like that. But don't.
yeah.
The worst thing they could do is fully integrate it. Is like you said.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that assessment. I would say, yeah, if it's going to be sold, it'll be something like that where WWE will just quietly acquire it, but they
Yeah,
won't. Yeah, they won't try and be part of the day to day creative, or as as Vince infamously said, in the weeds. He won't be in the weeds, and then the very next episode he was in the weeds. But never
but
mind
here's
that.
the thing. Like
That
the difference. The
they'll
difference
stay
was
out of it until, like you say, maybe TNA, has a really hot star or someone, a really promising prospect, and you might see them show up at things like the Rumble or like this Jordynne Grace thing, challenging for titles. So I
yeah.
mean,
Like
I think there's a lot of potential to it.
I'll put it to you this way, right? Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler's in TNA now, right? Having
Yeah.
a phenomenal run.
Some
Does it not make more sense that he's there and stars like Dolph Ziggler, who had to run in WWE, can't really do more, want to work with talent that maybe aren't there yet, go down, have a phenomenal run, get the product hot, and still is able to be used if they want them in different aspects. Like, there's a lot of upside to having TNA as their feeder. And look, call a spade a spade. TNA has been WWE's feeder and by extension AEW's feeder for years. So it's
Oh
more just
yeah.
kind of like just giving them more money so they're actually able to be stable rather than a sale. But the minute you start seeing WWE AEW presents, oh, that's bad. That's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. It needs to be completely separate and have TNA as, even when it's on, like a WWE show, be like, no, we're still TNA.
What do you think? So obviously stuff like this takes a lot of time. Sorry, and it be a while before it comes out. But in the meantime, do you think we'll see a big uptick in TNA's viewership from WWE fans?
That's a tough question. I mean, there is a lot of like TNA fans are TNA fans, first and foremost, right? They really don't like AEW like at all, which is hilarious. They're the most anti AEW people I've ever met, which is
But
wild.
is that just because
I don't know what it is.
AEW took like a lot of the top guys, or
I don't know what it is, but they all love Jim Cornette and they hate AEW. So that was my from speaking with the fan base at Glasgow.
they all love Jim Cornette. They all love the same three jokes told over and over for 4 hours.
Martin, I don't know. As I said, you should have come over to Glasgow and you could have interacted with these people yourself. But
Oh, I would have loved that.
I had a great time, and we all had very interesting conversations. But the point I was saying was that they like what they like, and what they like is TNA, right? No matter what it is, once it's TNA. And look, and that's why it survives. Honestly, like if you're a TNA fan, it's not like you're a WWE fan and AEW fan because you were disappointed. You were there in the weeds. You were there in the you know what, and you have stuck through thick and thin. So you're there for life. Will it go to NXT? Probably, but TNA fans have to have a reason to go over. Jordynne Grace competing is not really enough to bring those fans over because they're like, oh, she's going to lose. But if she wins that belt, boom, there you go.
That's what I'm saying. That's
a huge win. It's a huge win. And the reason, like Dave's brother was talking about it, and he was freaking out because Jordynne Grace is on NXT, which I mean, fair, but he's a WWE fan through and through, right? So they're already hooked. But to get the NXT core, they're already hooked. To get TNA core over to NXT, Jordynne Grace has to win. Has to win.
And if WWE is looking at acquiring them, like they might even do it they might do it through a third company. They might do it on the quiet or something. But if they are
really smart to do that, yeah.
Yeah, but if they are looking at acquiring them, like why wouldn't they want to profile like the likes of Jordynne Grace? If it's going to be their promotion, even by proxy, why wouldn't they want to profile some of the big stars and also get people excited about them and get people watching?
And also think about this as well, man. The tape library. Think of the DVDs you could get. Oh. The best of AJ Styles, all that footage upscaled and, clean. It would be unbelievable. It's the thing that makes the most sense in the world. But will it happen? I believe it will, but we'll have to keep an eye on it. I was going through the comments. On this channel, and someone commented the last time we were talking about WWE and Soul, and he goes, "Oh, if you're right, I'll give you €5 or whatever." I'm like, well, I called him out on it.
Patreon.
This is what I said. I called him out to. So if you're listening,
you owe us a $5.
You owe us a $5. You might as well get. Or I even said for $10 you can get a note. So I mean, you can go to our Patreon. And Martin, what can you get if you give us a $10? Because this guy already owes us a $5. So
well, he owes us $6. I'd
true.
say because I imagine like 99% of the population, he doesn't know what X-Pac is shouting at the start of his entrance music. So he owes us the $5 that he promised you 2 years ago. Yeah. And Lord only knows what that is with inflation now. I'd say.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah.
I'd say £6,000. He owes us an X-Pac euro. And if he wants to throw another €4 in on top of that, that'd bring him up to the Rennet tier. Rennet,
the elite, the all elite Rennet tier.
Elite Rennet tier. And Rennet, for those who own mirrors, is tenor spelled backwards.
It is.
So for the Rennet tier, you get to give us your legally distinct Buckley list.
Yes.
We'll read it out. We'll have a crack about it on the show. If you're available, we might even get you on to talk about it. But as well as that, pride of place in your home will be a handcrafted letter from the Wrestling Rewind crew, written backwards. I was about to say backwards, but I couldn't figure out what it was quick enough in my head. That's why when someone does send us this tenor, the letter's going to take about a month to get there.
You're gonna have to make your own device that like has the mirror pointed in just the right way.
Yeah.
You're still able to write. This is a challenge.
I'm gonna need to lay like a carbon paper down on the mirror. I can write on it and it'll pop up backwards on the other side.
I'm looking forward to this. So look, you know who you are. I'm not going to call you out on the internet, but you did leave a comment. I was right, as I've been right about quite a lot of things, which is bizarre to be honest with you. I don't know how I inherited this gift of foresight, wrestling foresight. I wish it was for like the lotto numbers, something useful instead of wrestling. But there you go. You can send us a tenner, and it's kind of like winning the lotto, a very small lotto.
And as a tenner, you might as well. Like we say, you already owe 6, and you don't want to owe a man from South Armagh money.
There you go. So, speaking of money, there was an update to some video game stuff. There was an update to WWE 2K24, which look, it's kind of annoying. It's kind of icky, but I did pay it, right? So there was the 40 years of WrestleMania or whatever, right? And it had certain things in it. Bad Bunny, updated attires for certain wrestlers, Triple H's his gold helmet look, which was pretty badass, and loads of different arenas from WrestleMania, like pretty much all the WrestleMania arenas. I was wondering why I couldn't play them, and now I know why, because they were locked behind a 1999 paywall.
So scummy, isn't it?
But the last update included WrestleMania 40, the arena, right? And my seat at WrestleMania was up here, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh!
So
are you rendered in the game?
I am rendered in the game.
You're going to have to add that to your list of credits along with Game of Thrones.
I intend to. I intend to. When I saw it, I was like, there's no way. I think, and Dave was down here, like he was just back here. So he'll have to confirm if he's also rendered, but I am in a WWE video game, ladies and gentlemen. How cool is that?
Yes. I love
that. I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's no way. Like, the actual render of the arena is spot on. It looks really, really good. So, fair play. I was shocked. I wasn't really a believer myself into how good it was. I thought it was going to be something kind of lazy. It's not. It's spot on. Like, it looks exactly like it did. So
I was tempted to give 2K24 a go myself this week, because I saw on the Xbox shop that it was on sale. It's 33% off, or
it is very good, Martin.
25%.
It's a very good game. It really is.
I'll think about it. I really don't like the sim type games. I'm more into the arcadey.
But they've actually updated the controller as well. Sorry, go on.
The point was that I saw that it was on sale on the Xbox shop for 33 or 30% off, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll give that a go. I wouldn't mind spending. Yeah, I could drop 30 quid or so on that. No, even with like 33% off, the game's like 60 quid. What?
I have to
what
say,
is
right?
that?
I have to say, right? It is like I have 50 hours put into it, right? It's very good. It kind of has everything you want I'm probably going to do a proper review for the channel, but it has everything you want in the game. It has the arcadey stuff, it has the simulation stuff, it has good GM mode. The actual updates are great. Like, we have a really cool Sandman, which is great. Punk is back, which is also great. They kind of just updated into everything you'd want. And then, of course, the community creations kind of fill in where they have, people making whatever, and then you can mod it and all that kind of stuff. So, but officially, you know, this is the latest thing that they released, and I'm just thrilled that, I'm rendered in WWE 2K. It's bizarre because I was just like, when I saw it, I was like, there's absolutely no way that were that meticulous about it. But no, they were in the stands. That's so cool. Um, but I
That's awesome.
finally, finally, finally played another wrestling video game this week, and it was free, so I'm not going to complain too much. It was free. It was on what's a PlayStation Network Plus membership or whatever. So it was
Yeah.
this and Street Rage 4, which is a great game too. So I downloaded this and I was like, oh cool, I'll actually get to play it, right? And look, I didn't hate it by any stretch of imagination. It was a massive adjustment because it like the actual base controls are completely different. Pinning is completely different. Submissions, doing finishers. There is a steep learning curve if you're going from the 2K games to Fight Forever.
I picked it up straight away. See,
I
I think
struggled a
because
lot.
I
I
think
struggled
because
a lot with it.
you've played like a lot of 2K and that, the last wrestling game that I was really invested a lot of time into was No Mercy. And like even
Okay, that
in
makes
recent
sense as well.
years, I would still, get out my old N64 card of No Mercy and you blow on it, or you'd give it like gently rub it with like a nail polish to get the you know
The
the
wires, yeah,
yeah, the connectors in the thing
yeah.
to get them exposed a bit, and just sort of stick it in and cross your fingers and hope for the best. So I would still play it fairly regularly.
Okay, well
Um,
that's no, you are spot on because I mean I haven't N64. I've played No Mercy a bit, but no way near as much as the SmackDown games or the 2K games. So it is
yeah,
it
no,
is very
no
difficult
mercy
for me.
was my jam.
Okay, well look, I mean then you're spot on, but I what I did really like, and you're gonna probably not enjoy this as much as I did. CM Punk's in both of them,
Yeah,
and I
I
was
think
like yes, this is genuinely wonderful. So I got to have CM Punk in the WrestleMania arena, which is great. And then I got to have CM Punk win all the titles in AEW, which was also great.
I think
Yeah,
fittingly, because Punk's such a big Bret Hart fan, I
yeah,
think he is the first wrestler to do that since Bret Hart,
I
because
think so. Yeah,
Bret
yeah, yeah,
Hart,
yeah.
his contract, well, not his contract, the screw job happened shortly after he was in, I think, one of the Attitude games,
He
and
was
then he
in
was
Warzone.
Warzone, and then
Yeah,
he was in WCW
Thunder, I think.
soon enough to be
Yeah,
there for NWO World Tour. So
was he
I
in
think
World Tour as well? I thought it was Thunder.
it was, well, one or
One of
the
them.
other,
It's one of
but
them.
the point is he was up until Punk, and possibly Cody. He was the
Cody's
only
also in it.
wrestler
Yeah, yeah.
to
Cody's
be
also in
in
both. Yeah.
two major rival computer games at the same time.
What's funny is Cody. You have to buy him in Fight Forever. He's not
What?
free. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You have to
yeah, he
buy him.
is.
Well, no, in the free version that I got, you have to buy them. Like not with money, but with the currency you get from playing the matches. You have to
Oh,
buy him,
right.
and
Okay.
Audrey Edwards as well. You have to buy.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah, look,
you have to unlock them, like you have to win
yeah,
them.
yeah. You don't spend cash money, but like
Yeah, I don't mind that. Oh,
the season, like there are some wrestlers that are walled off. The Stampede thing was walled off as well. But you know what I did really enjoy, and I have to say, like I didn't go into this with any expectations other than it's kind of disappointing. Uh, but I mean, I really, really, really enjoyed the barbed wire match. I
oh,
thought
it's
it was
class.
super
Yeah,
fun. Like, like they're bleeding everywhere, and there's explosions, and it's super silly. And the lights out match is super fun too. And
looks
look,
great.
the only criticism I'd have, other than the controls are weird, and that's just a preference thing, because I'm not used to them. Because I did pick it up, after a couple of minutes. The only thing that sucks, and I didn't like, one Cody's in it, but whatever. It's the lack of arenas. That's the only
Oh,
thing. It's like there's only like four
that's
arenas or something, and that's the only
that's what
genuine criticism I have.
that's what did the game. And so the base game, I love. because it's all I wanted for years was
Yeah,
just
I mean,
give me an updated No Mercy. That
it's
was
a
all I
lot of
ever
fun.
wanted.
It's an awful lot of fun. It's
Yeah,
just that's what kills the game for me. I
yeah.
can't even explain it.
No, I completely agree. I say this as a big AEW fan, and I say this as someone who not only bought it when it came out, who pre-ordered it and paid for the full £70 with the season pass and all the other stuff. The lack of features is what absolutely kills that game.
Yeah.
I know it was obviously done on a smaller budget than like the likes of the 2K games, but how in 2024 can you be coming out with a wrestling game that doesn't even have a cage match? Like,
Well, like I think the stuff that they have that differentiates them, like the barbed wire matches, they do need to kind of bring that back, right? But it's a thing that they have, and it's their unique thing, and it's very it plays like the presentation of it rather than the actual gameplay. Plays like when you play a WCW game, or when you play the TNA game, the TNA Impact game from a couple of years ago, where look, it wasn't great. There's videos on this channel where I talked about it, but it still was its own thing, and it felt like its own thing. The big credit here, and you really have to give it to AEW here, and I know this is a weird thing coming from me, who's very harsh on AEW, is that like it genuinely feels like its own unique thing that you can only play if you get the game, right? So that's great, but I think it's not like they didn't need all the game types. They can patch those in, and they have been patching them in. What they should do is they should absolutely build a community thing where you can put
oh,
in mods.
it 100%. It
Like
needs.
honestly, if you were to ask me, should we have more match types or should we bring in a community creation? Community creation. Let fans do the work for you because they will.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like you don't even have to. You just give them the tools and they'll do it. But
Because
come here,
that's
did
what's
you?
happening that's what's happening in 2K24. Like if you want to play an AEW game with all the features, you can literally just download the entire roster and
It's
just
yeah,
go.
it's wild. But come here, did you when you were playing Fight Forever? Did you try any of the creator wrestlers or anything?
I did. I created an arena. I created the wrestlers.
It's
It's
so
very,
basic.
it's so basic, and that's where I would give more love to it. Right? If we were like, right, we're going to patch this. We're going to do a new iteration. I don't think developing a new game from scratch is a good idea generally, because that costs an awful lot of money. What they should do is like really just be like, right, we're going to add in this huge feature, pure customization, be allowed to do exactly what you want in it, and then open it up to the public, and then there you go. I mean, I think that's where invest
Well,
a couple of
here's
invest in that. That's what I would do.
so what got me to do the pre-order and pay for it up front was that we were told the game will come out and that it's not going to be like the 2K games every year you have to buy a new game. It's going to be continually updated and continually built upon. And I really like that. But I think that idea, because of the really negative fan reaction to like a lot of very basic updates that should have been in the game, coming out as DLC that you have to pay for, I think Fight Forever's done.
I
Um,
hope not.
but
I like I can totally see why. And before I got the game, look, and I was going to pay for it. It was €15 on Amazon. I was like one click away from it, and then I saw that I was going to get it for free. So I'm like, right, I'm not right.
it's worth €15.
It is, yeah. I'd say it's even worth 20, right? But
It's definitely not worth 70.
no,
I'll tell you
no,
that.
no, it's definitely not, and it's definitely not like a core wrestling. Like if this was my only wrestling video game, I would be very upset, right? I would genuinely be like, this is a bad time. This
Well, I'll
sucks.
tell you. Do you know the other place where it really, really excels? And
Well,
this is where it's more like No Mercy than maybe this is the part of it that's more like No Mercy than anything else. But you don't see it a lot nowadays. The way people play computer games. See if you get four friends on the couch.
yeah,
Awesome. They like Fight Forever is whenever the lads come up here to Belfast and we all land back to the house half cut. Fight Forever is straight away the game we all go for.
And that's why, even more so, online community creation needs to be its main thing. The main thing that AEW Fight Forever doesn't have, it doesn't have enough to differentiate it to be like, oh, I'd play that over 2K, purely because, as I said, if you want to create AEW, you can. I mean, I have Impact Wrestling as one of my brands in 2K24. That's my brand, and it's full of all the wrestlers that I've just downloaded off other people. So to compete with that, like, the gameplay is unique, the matches are unique, but it needs to have a much more varied presentation, because, like, there's only so many times you can go into they don't even have All In, which I was like,
it's
why don't they
mad.
have All In?
No,
This is crazy.
The amount of incredibly basic things that aren't in it is like I say, as a fan who really bought into it, who was really excited, I was very annoyed.
Like, here's the
About
thing, Martin.
the lack of options.
I'm not even a fan. I barely care, right? But at the same time, I'm like, if I was a fan, like, if I was a genuine fan who paid for this, I'd be raging,
Oh
because it's
yeah,
just like, I can't even do, like, the biggest pay-per-view they ever did was in Wembley, and you can't recreate that.
Where's Wembley?
Why can't you like, that's, and I have to say, like, the smaller, like, there's like two crowd rows, where there's, sorry, two rows of crowd people, for want of a better word. I don't really know how to put that, like, where there's like one row and another row and then darkness. It's like, no TNA show actually looks like that. They at least have, some people in the stands. This looks like an NXT show, like a small NXT show. So it doesn't even capture the scale of an of a AEW show. It's
I mean,
very bizarre, man. Very bizarre.
Like the graphical stuff, like that didn't really bother me that much. But whenever I saw that the game was going for that old school style, and that they weren't making a big deal out of hyper realistic graphics, I was kind of excited about that.
I'm not even saying,
like, that
no, I'm not even
leaves
saying
much more room for features and for extras and for
but they're not there either.
They're not there. Yeah, that's the problem.
No, what I was saying was, like, even in, SmackDown, like the first SmackDown that was on the PlayStation, the crowd was like a bit of paper that moved, but it was like 10 rows deep, it's just a weird, it's just, I don't get the choices, I don't understand why they did what they did.
Here, look, same here. Now, the only thing I will say is that, like I said, because the fan reaction was like so bad, like the backlash was so bad, a lot of people assumed that the game had kind of failed.
Right.
But there was a report out literally just this week that whatever the publishing company is, that they're all really happy with the sales and with the pickup of the DLC. Obviously, it's not like, like award-winning sales or anything like that, but in terms of what they had projected and what they had hoped for, apparently it's surpassed that. So the hope is that that there's enough goodwill there from fans and enough of an incentive there from those sales, that if they could say to fans, look, we have learned from all the mistakes we have made, and we're coming out now with Fight Forever 2, or I don't know, This Is Wrestling, or whatever they're going to call it, that it would be, that they'd be able to build on what they've done, and there'd still be maybe that bit of goodwill from the fan base. But it would be the last chance to get.
I would say, in order to get that fan base, like, I think another game's a bad idea, straight out, right? And the reason why is because you're going to squeeze them again for another 70. Here's how you win the fans back on that, right? We'll go to break on this. You do that. You build a new game, right? You build a new game. You bring in all the patches. You build in all the patches you want, full online customization, more modes, and stuff. You release it as a DLC.
Yeah,
$15, right?
Yeah.
$15.
Basically, how they fixed No Man's Sky.
Yeah, and also how they did Cyberpunk, right? Where they basically built a new game, right? $15, $10, or even free. I mean, Tony can afford it, right? And go, look, lads, we messed up, but here's what I'm going to do. And then everyone gets that, they play, and then they have enough goodwill, they've won everybody back, then you do your other game. Because then everybody got what they want, they were happy. And they
That's
also then, and here's the important part, Martin. You have your code base to build on. You have that new game there. You can actually have your cake and eat it too, because here's the thing. You give something that everybody's happy with, they play it for a year. You can release that the next year with some more features added on, update roster, blah, 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 blah. But all the work is already done. And that money, that $70 that you're going to charge, you're going to get it anyway, you know? But by trying to chase and by bleeding your fan base with these season pass things that don't really deliver a full experience, that only ends up one thing. That only annoys more people. So that's what I would do. You nailed it.
no,
Spot on.
that is a
No man.
great shout, Dara. And the proof that that's a great shout is that everybody after, I can't remember the name of the company who made it, but when No Man's Sky came out,
Yeah,
like
perfect,
that company was dead. Anyone else would have just shut that company down.
Yeah.
But they owned up to what they did, and they spent years making up for it. And now people talk about No Man's Sky in the most glowing, affectionate terms.
So
And
you
wouldn't have thought that was possible.
You could get No Man's Sky at one point for like pretty much new for €5 in a bin, right? Now No Man's Sky is €45.
Yeah.
Years after it's been released.
No, that's a great shout there. Yep.
So that's what I would do. But Martin, look, we've buried the lead a little bit. We're going to go on break here on the stream, and then we're going to finish up on Phoenix as well. So, folks, thank you so much for checking us out. If you're listening to us on Phoenix 92.5 FM, of course, we are going to be more live here on Twitch and YouTube. And then the show is obviously on Tuesday nights. But if you want to check out the rest of this show, please go over and join us on the stream live, or you can go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com. You can go over to thewrestlingrewind.com, and you can get the show on Spotify, iTunes, all that kind of good stuff, because we are going to find out exactly what the heck Control Your Narrative was after this short break. Martin, is there anything you want to plug before we hit break here?
Now, folks, the choice is yours. You have the power to follow the stream. You can control your narrative.
And with that, folks, we'll be back next week here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. We see you after this short break, where we're going to be talking about Control Your Narrative. See you then.
Keep our lad.
All right, folks, and we are back here on the stream on nerdtoknowmedia.com, on thewrestlingrewind.com. Thank you so much for listening in. If you're joining us live, we're on YouTube and Twitch. So, folks, please subscribe. We do really very much appreciate that. And we're going to get into the meat of the show now. Control Your Narrative. I didn't know what this was. Now, look, again, we were doing the show, other shows like it. We were, focused on other things. And, when this was going on, I was hearing Control Your Narrative, this and that. It was basically lads who were fired when all those firings happened in WWE. Braun Strowman, for some reason, was hanging out with EC3, and I just didn't look into it because I didn't know what it was, and I didn't have the interest for it.
Austin Aries, and it's a real strange crew.
Here's the thing, though, right? So in hindsight, you can tell that it's a bad idea. But this article from the Sportster is at the time people saying this is a bad idea. So it's kind of like looking at the Titanic and people like, oh, that's a bad idea, folks. Maybe don't. Maybe pack some lifeboats.
Get on that. There's no lifeboats on that thing, lads.
That's a bad idea, And I just think it's incredible that the run of this promotion, it was so short-lived and so haphazard put together that it was falling apart as it was going on. And I think it's only 3 months. So I really wanted to get your opinion on this, Martin, because the way when I show you this stuff, you're like, what the hell is going on? I think it's wonderful.
Well, you had to get my opinion on it because you needed an expert. And as you know, I recently got my PhD, and I am now a fully qualified proctologist, which is exactly what you would need, because I've never in my life seen a promotion so far up its own hole.
Well, here's the thing. Before we get into how bad it was, I just love this here because this was on Reddit. It was like, in a few sentences, could someone explain what the hell control your narrative is?
No.
And some of them are great. Like, it's ECW for MAGA people. Guess that doesn't work for me, brother. It was too long of a name. So yeah, there's a few other ones here where it's just like, okay, Dead in the Water is quite fun. I like that one. That's a short one. It's ECW for MAGA people. Any research I've done in this has thrown this up again and again and again. And I don't really understand why. I mean, I don't understand how that kind of, where that comes from. Because when I was watching the show, and we did have a look at one of the shows, it's like matches that you can't see because they're in the dark.
You
And
can't
then there's
hear
like,
them because they have a narrator,
you have a narrator.
not a commentator who
No, a narrator.
talks over the match, explaining what's happening. A narrator who just waffles over the match about like this real philosophy 101, like high school philosophy stuff, would look at it like someone's in a submission hold and he's not talking about the submission hold or whether or not he's going to tap out or what the stakes of the match are. It's like, pain is only in your mind and the mind is in the sky. The sky are the stars and you are a star, but you're looking down at the stars because you are a god. What? So
look, I don't know where the QAnon stuff comes from. Is it the presentation or is it?
No, I think I was actually looking out for a lot of that stuff.
Because I was looking up for this as well. Like, I mean, it's a funny meme.
It's not in
it's not in the material, right?
It's not in the material. Do you know what it is? It's the wrestlers themselves. Even though they didn't make it part of the show, because we have Twitter and all now, everybody knows what wrestlers think about everything. And several of the wrestlers, EC3 and Braun Strowman and different ones who were involved at like the founding of Control Your Narrative, were all like real conspiracy loons, MAGA heads, anti-vaxxers.
So that's the bit that I was confused by, because I kept sitting here waiting for it. I'm like,
yeah. If you weren't on Twitter, you that would not be your impression of the show.
So these guys on Reddit were obviously like following what they were doing, right?
Yeah, these judgments are made based on what people know about the fellas behind it, rather than the actual.
That doesn't answer the question, folks. What are you doing? I still don't know what it is.
Exactly. That's why when you said, "Can you explain Control Your Narrative in a few sentences?" No. Because it takes, like I said earlier, it takes a 20-minute YouTube video to adequately explain what this is.
I did try to take the easy road here and go on Reddit and see what happens, but they were, the jokes are funny and they are quite funny, but it doesn't answer the question. So I'm still perturbed here. So look, up on the screen now, there are the rules.
Do you know what I would describe it as?
Go
on. EC3's vanity project.
I think the closest thing is that doesn't work for me, brother.
That's a good one. I really like that one.
That's a really good one.
It's so serious and thinks so highly of itself.
You think they believe it? You think like?
I don't know. If you didn't believe it, I don't know how you could go out and do something like the show we watched, how you could do that and not think yourself a complete fool if you didn't wholeheartedly believe in what you were doing. But I think so for those listening, we watched it's Control Your Narrative, Free the Narrative. And the style of presentation, it really has to be seen to be believed. You hit play and you look at the timer and an hour and 27 minutes. Well, this would be a nice snappy pay-per-view, a couple of real hot matches, get through them. No, it's it starts off with a 20-minute video package, and about 17 and a half minutes of it is literally EC3 waffling into the camera. And I mean, do you know the way you used to accuse like the Attitude Era Undertaker of what the Ministry of Darkness Undertaker of total nonsense, or people used to accuse Bray Wyatt of just absolute meaningless jibber jabber. No, this is a whole new level of just meaningless waffle. Like loads of terms that he thought sounded cool, but that when you stop and think about them, don't mean anything. Basically a less intense Ultimate Warrior promo, but for 20 minutes.
And he believes every word that he's saying.
He 100% believes it.
The weird thing about it is, like, so I'm trying to look here on Cage Match for like a rundown of the matches. They just don't exist. The actual websites are.
If you think that's bad,
the websites are malware.
Yeah, if you think that's bad, this is how little information there is on Control Your Narrative. I suspect that some of the people involved in it actually tried to scrub it from the internet, because it doesn't even have a Wikipedia page.
As I said, you go on the websites and Google won't let you because it thinks it's malware.
Yeah, I think those involved in it were so embarrassed by it that they had it scrubbed from the internet.
Why do you think?
Why do I think they were embarrassed by it?
No, sorry, I wasn't clear. Why do you think they went along with it? Like, surely,
I mean,
when
WWE had so here's the thing: is this company had everything going for it. All it had to do was not be complete jackassery. But Control Your Narrative came about because WWE fired hundreds of wrestlers in a pandemic when there was nowhere else for them to work. It was in the long list of scummy things they've done, it was probably the top 3, top 5 scummiest thing. So these wrestlers had a lot of public sympathy, a lot of public support. They could have really made something that people, even if it wasn't great, people would have supported it just to support them. But the fact that it failed so incredibly and so quickly is a testament to how unlikable it was, to how unwatchable it was, because of the weird production choices, from the deep blue light that would sometimes shine directly into the camera and you literally couldn't see what was going on, to the narrator who would talk over matches, to the matches being weirdly edited, almost like cinematic matches. Like they would have.
like that's the thing. And that was probably because of the pandemic, where we were kind of used to these. Like we got them as WrestleMania main events, so it wasn't too far outside what they were doing. But look, Cage Match, actually, I found the Cage Match for it. So we can have a look here. There were only 5 matches on it, and they weren't long. I mean, Moose was there, EC3 was there, Mark Cardano, was the main event.
Yeah, there was some real top talent. Scotty Too Hottie. How do you screw up a show with Scotty Too Hottie on it?
Well, you have someone talk over Scotty Too Hottie for the entire time.
And you don't let him be Scotty Too Hottie. You do this real serious, deep, faux philosophical narrative over his match. That was the other thing about it. I never want to hear the word narrative again. It's like after WrestleMania, I never want to hear finish the story again.
Oh yeah.
I never want to hear the word narrative again, because everything was control your narrative, free your narrative. This is the narrative. We are your narrative. Be your own narrative. Dude, shut up. It's like when someone says banana over and over and it loses all meaning.
Jiminy Jillikers. Jiminy Jillikers. Jiminy Jillikers. Okay, so look, up on the screen before we get into it, we have the rules and regulations of CYN, and for that we'll just call it CYN, so we're not saying control your narrative over and over again.
Oh,
so
small mercies.
So, Martin, what are the rules of CYN?
Well, just in case the kind of underground feel and the full philosophy and the super machismo of it all, just in case that hadn't tipped you off to what EC3's favorite movie might be, the first rule of control your narrative is that you control your narrative. The second rule of control your narrative is that you control your narrative. They saw Fight Club. They completely missed the meaning of it, and they said, "We'll build a wrestling promotion around our misunderstanding of this movie."
They're like, that movie? Yeah, that's my life now.
That's awesome.
But to be fair, you know what? They're like a lot of 14-year-old young fellas who find Fight Club and it becomes their personality for like 3 years and then they grow out of it.
Yeah, it's like people who watch American Psycho and think Patrick Bateman's the good guy. Or
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, they're like, yeah, that's what we need to do. That thing. But you know what's funny, right? Like, it was kind of taken from a lot of like the Zeitgeist at the time, right? So cinematic matches were a thing that needed to be done because of the pandemic, obviously.
Yeah.
And I do think when they work, they really work. When they don't, it can be a disaster. But I do think there's a place for them. Another thing is the underground stuff. I mean, WWE had the Raw Underground thing for like 2 weeks, and that was awesome. But then they stopped it. So I can understand where they're like, oh, look, this could work. But the wheels kind of fell off of this where it was like, look, we have a hard and fast rule on the show. When the rules need to be explained on the screen, that is a bad sign.
It's
a bad sign. Like, once you see like any kind of graphic on the screen where it's like, here are the rules, you're like, okay, we are in for some serious, you know what.
And that's bad enough when the rules make sense. But the control your narrative rules are, well, firstly, a lot of them are counterproductive or self-defeating. Like, so for example, rule 4 is standard professional wrestling rules apply for sanction matches. Chaos ensues in the project pit. So anything goes. It's going to be madness. This is a fight. Rule number 5, no super kicks, no tope suicidas, no Canadian destroyers.
But what about if you're in the project pit? Then can you do super kicks and Canadian destroyers?
This is where it is entirely unclear. What these rules need is subcategories. Should be rule 4A, rule 4B, rule 5C. Yeah, rule 5C, rule 4A, subsection A2.
Look, and fundamentally, if so rule 6, if the fight is with your opponent, it isn't with your opponent, it's with yourself. So does that mean if you beat your opponent, the opponent has won?
Yeah, but see, that's what I mean. That's not even a rule then. That's kind of just like a philosophy or like a pep talk or something. Like you're not going out there to fight whoever you're really struggling with yourself. And I mean, like, that doesn't make any sense to have in the rules. Because firstly, if I'm going out there and my true opponent is myself, I am doing the Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan finger poker doom. I am putting myself over straight away. Like, I'm walking out of there with the title, day one.
But here's another one, right? So fights will go on as long as they have to. Sanction matches will hit their times.
Yeah, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Is that like acknowledging that it's fake? You got 13 minutes, lads. Be in and out in 13 minutes. Is that what that is? Because if that's what that is, then
I really don't know.
Why was Braun Strowman out tweeting about it, going, so on? They had a show that was on WrestleMania weekend, and Braun Strowman was out tweeting about it, going, "Hey, anyone who wants to see any wrestling, Control Your Narrative is the only show worth watching this weekend, because we don't do any of that namby-pamby ballerina crap that they'll be doing. We do real fighting." I was like, Oh man, it's rest.
And remember, if you want to control your narrative, you have to fight. So again, he saw
You have to
Fight
control
Club.
your fight, but you have to fight. You have to control your fight. No, if you want to control your narrative, you have to fight, but you have to fight yourself. But you can't super kick yourself unless you're in the project pit. But actually, you can super kick yourself because all rules are superseded by rule 1, which is you are in control, which is itself superseded by rule 2, which is you are in control. So there you go, folks. And if you think we're making this sound needlessly complicated, look it up for yourself.
So remember when Al Snow had the match with himself
Yeah,
for the hardcore title?
that was entertaining.
Yeah, like why did that work? And why does this not
Well,
work? I mean,
genuinely,
like Al Snow
what I think
literally
is,
wrestled himself,
but
and that
genuinely,
was awesome.
what I think is the problem with it is, they took, like you said, things that were popular at the time that would have actually worked, the underground aesthetic, the kind of lean towards cinematic matches. If they had taken those and made them elements of the promotion
Right.
rather than the be all and end all, I think it could have worked. Like those things would have worked if they'd been woven into a promotion that was doing all the other stuff
Right.
people liked, you know. But they made it their entire and sole identity. And the other thing is that they did cinematic matches in just the most boring way possible. I mean, if you're going to be the company that specializes in and does all cinematic matches, man, go all out with it.
They
I don't
really
want to
are.
see 6 cinematic matches in a row in the same poorly lit warehouse. Like,
See, that's the thing.
get
You
out
can't
into
even.
under the roof of a shed in a farm and find a military facility somewhere that'll let you wrestle on a tank or like.
Well, here's another missed opportunity. I think Bray Wyatt was fired at this time as well. Where was he? Where was Matt
He took
Hardy?
Bray Wyatt was a smart man. He took one look at it and said, "Nope,
No, but
gonna
that's what I'm
sit it
saying to you.
out."
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like the guys who could have done it: Bray Wyatt, Matt Hardy. Um,
Yeah,
you
they're
know,
all available.
they were all available. They're all sitting there. I mean, this was like they've done this in TNA. They've done it in WWE. They did a little bit in AEW. But not obviously not as much because it just does not work in AEW. It works mainly in TNA and WWE. Like, but I don't know the guys who could have done this properly weren't used, and that was the first thing when I was watching this. I'm like, okay, all these matches are the same. I can see half of them because that shadow was just in the way.
And
You
the
cannot
worst
see
thing about
anything.
that is that that's not even like, oh, we just didn't have the money for that. Is a production choice they
Choice.
made.
That is a choice.
Bizarre.
Yeah, they have,
Bizarre.
and I mean, like, look again. Lucha Underground did stuff like this, but it was still legible. This is just awful. Like from
Oh,
step to step. And
you literally can't. So half the time you can't see like at all what's happening. But
look,
even
we
when
look we could go weeks.
even when you can see, the
Mm,
light is that real deep dark blue. Everyone looks the same, so you kind of can't make out which guy it is you're even looking at.
that's the problem. You're like, how are you supposed to? Again, it has to be the choice, right? Like, how can you cheer for someone? And I think maybe that's what it is. Like, this could be a case where it's so. You know what this is? This is the wrestling equivalent of when that lad went in and put his glasses down at a modern art museum, and everybody just thought it was an exhibit, and just sat there taking pictures, and your man picked them up about 2 hours later and walked away. That's what this kind of is. It's like EC3, and I like EC3. I think he's one of the best TNA stars probably ever, but I think he just worked himself into a shoe here, where it's like, you know, oh, this is going to be wonderful, and we've seen what happens. You know, when ECW got to say goodbye their way, we got Hardcore Justice. When EC3 wanted to start a wrestling motion, we got this. But at least with Hardcore Justice, we're able to talk about the matches. I don't even know how we talk about a 2-minute match that nobody
Oh
could see.
no, I
I
didn't
mean, what
even.
were you going to say? I couldn't say it.
I took notes, but notes on the video. I have zero notes on any of the actual matches because not only is it hard to see them, not only are they done in this weird cinematic way, weirdly edited, weirdly shot, but the kind of start and finish out of nowhere. There's no lead up to them. Like one of the matches, so you get EC3's 20-minute rambling intro, and then he starts talking about like there's loads of insider knowledge, like or loads
Yeah,
of
it's
insider
very,
language. Like he's talking about,
very insider.
oh,
Yeah.
this guy's a good hand, but is he a jobber? This guy thinks he's got what. So the next thing it cuts to being
Is
in a
he a
car,
jobber?
and you're yeah, like you're in this car then, and this guy's talking about like yeah, you know, man, we're hitting those roads, making those miles, making those towns, blah blah blah, and I'm sitting watching it, and I'm going, is this? Have we picked the wrong? Did Dara send me the wrong video or? So I skipped forward 4 or 5 minutes, and it's still him talking, like just in his car driving down the road, like pointless waffle into the camera. Skip forward another couple of minutes, and the next thing, this match has just materialized out of nowhere. Like no entrances, no big, no. This is such and such. It's just started. In fact, I don't even remember. Are there? Is there a referee in the ring?
There is. You can't see him though.
Oh, okay, right, right.
Yeah. Look, I mean, when I was watching this, I was like, there were certain things I was expecting. Right, wrestling was one of them. That didn't happen.
No,
Uh,
less wrestling than an average WWE show.
oh,
Mental.
it's insane. It's insane. Less wrestling than a WWE show during the Attitude Era. Right. I think it was the worst of like a lot of it.
Not even a 3 minute road dog match.
No, just nothing. Like it was. I do have to say, look, this was in the middle of the pandemic. Like it was peak pandemic. I do admire that they did something, right? I think it is. It does have creative merit. It's just
Oh,
extremely. It's just.
yeah, it's very different.
It's very different, and I can see this being like, okay, the difference here is there was no, like, the hand that was guiding it was like really, really, really misguided. Like it didn't know what it was. It knew, like, okay, the cinematic matches, and the only thing we can really compare this to are cinematic matches that happened at WrestleMania, really, right? And I know that's unfair because it's WrestleMania and they're using the WWE budget compared to whatever these lads could find in the couch. Um, you know, but at the same time, it's like they were still able to do it. They're still put on something. It's definitely a unique mark, but at the same time, we weren't able to see half it. We don't really know what it was about, and it never got over its entire approach. The thing going into it that I had was Braun Strowman is there for some reason, EC3 is there for some reason, and that was exactly what was met. This other stuff that we saw on Reddit, I wasn't aware of at all. I still didn't see any of it on the show, so I don't really know how relevant that was. It just comes off, honestly, as harsh as it's going to sound, like it was EC3's vanity project. And
It
that's
was. Do you,
really what it seems like.
do you know what the other thing about it was? That so he obviously set this up after being released from WWE, and very bitter about that.
Yeah.
Um, and as soon as it starts, you get this message at the very start, and the message at the start reminded me of: have you ever been on Tinder or Bumble or any of those dating apps, and you come across a profile that's all, ugh, so sick of this.
Oh,
No
yeah.
short gays, no time wasters. Don't even contact me if you're not willing to like have meaningful conversations. If you're not intelligent, don't even bother swipe. And you're like, who the hell is this arsehole? Swipe left. This starts off with like before anything starts, a warning comes up on screen that says, warning, control your narrative is for mature in capital letters and astute in capital letters audiences. It's not for children or weak minds. Goes on and on like that for about 40 fucking paragraphs. And then at the end, all you can hear in the background is EC3 going, "You have been warned." Like, you could have warned me that it was going to start with a 20-minute promo.
So the funny part of this, like the real funny part of this is, so Cage Match have the shows, and according to Cage Match, there are 10 shows, right, in total. They include some crossover shows with AML, and then also with GLCW, but there's like 10 shows overall, 6 core control your narrative shows, right? The funny part is this completely imploded as soon as Triple H got into power, brought back Killer Cross and Adam Scherr. So once Cross and Braun Strowman were brought back under their actual gimmicks, so obviously Killer Cross and Adam Scherr are Karrion Kross and Braun Strowman. Once they were brought back under their actual names, it was a death blow. Because Strowman very much was the face, the biggest star of the company next to EC3. And once he was brought back, it was done. So,
to be honest, Strowman strikes me as the type who is like, whenever he was released, I was like, well, he'll either be back in WWE or he's done with wrestling forever. Because he does not strike me as the type who's going to, hit the road and do the indies and make the towns.
Oh, sure. He'd made the comments less than a year before this about how he didn't have to do the indies.
Oh, on Twitter. Really horrible to indie, like really looking down on indie wrestlers.
But that's why it was so surprising that this thing ever started. Because I'm like, I get it. It's like you know what this is? This is like the anti-indies, right? And I necessarily don't hate it. I just think, because I think everything should be, if this had worked, it could have been like, you may not know this, a couple of years ago, when Doug Williams won the X Division belt, he refused to have X Division matches. He was like, no, we're going to have straight wrestling matches. And that was the gimmick, right? So everyone had to wrestle him properly, like wrestle him in a wrestling match, catch as catch can kind of thing. I can see that working. The issue here is it wasn't in good faith. It was like bitterness, it was like, indie-rific, bitter kind of thing. But it's like, okay, fair, you might think that, but no one wants
kind of sneering at your own audience.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to be sneered at down that. I mean, if you had done this in a way that was like, this is a genuine alternative as like an art project,
yeah,
totally could get it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't hate it fully because I'm like, it's so unique that I can't hate it. It's like, I really respect that you did this, but it's such a horrible mess and makes no sense that it's like, it's objectively bad. But it's not bad in the same way as Hardcore Justice was bad, or like December to Dismember was bad, where it's like, objectively, this is terrible. This was bad because the guy who was running it was like, I am so smart. Look how great I am. And I watched Fight Club 100 times.
100 times. I didn't understand it once.
And I missed every single message in it.
And I've never read the book.
But yeah, look, in the space of like less than a year, like 10 months, probably less, it had its initial run, with the crossover shows. And then within, exactly a year, almost today, it came and went. Had a crossover shows, and then
forever
that was
means.
it. But see, will it? Because it shows up on these lists. That's how I heard about it. I don't remember who was making the list. If I find out who it is, I'll put it in the comment below. Or if you guys remember, put it in the comments below, because I might forget. But it came up on like inactive promotions, and I was like, I never heard about this. We should talk about it and figure out. And it's the only time doing this show where I'm still confused about what the hell we watched. I have no clearer picture of this other than it had Braun Strowman in it, and EC3 for, it was his project, and that's still what it was.
Well, this is why the question, can you explain what Control Your Narrative was in a few sentences? The only answer is no, because even if you watch Control Your Narrative, it doesn't help you explain what it was. In fact, it's probably, to learn about Control Your Narrative, the worst thing you can probably do is watch Control Your Narrative.
It's like, to understand the great beyond of Leviathan is to go mad. And that's kind of what this is. It's like you look into the void, the Lovecraftian void of controlling a narrative, and you just go mad.
Yeah. You try to control your narrative, and your narrative controls you.
There you go. That's it. Why didn't they say that?
They probably did. It's full of so much like faux philosophy sounding bullshit. Like, it's unbelievable how much.
So how do you think
some of the sentences, like, you could just pluck them out of it, and they are just bullshit works of art. Like,
so what you think EC3 just sat there and look, we don't know, we're just making a joke, but you think EC3 sat there and, like, maybe indulged in some substances and was like, yeah, brilliant.
I know, because you know what? I think if he indulged in substances, he would have, like, accidentally stumbled upon, things that occasionally sounded profound or made sense. No, I think he got a philosophy book and he plucked random words out of it. He got a Nietzsche book, and then he dropped it in a puddle on the way home. And when he opened it, the pages came apart. So he just plucked random words out of it and just said those. Maybe it is genius. Maybe, like, yeah.
While watching Fight Club.
Yeah, while watching Fight Club, yeah. While making his own soap like Tyler Durden.
Oh, it's...
Because it veers into like a load of their politics are real, like, right wing and QAnon and all that stuff. Like, as we said, that doesn't appear in the show, but that's what they were like on Twitter. But
here's the thing, I mean, if that had been on the show, it would have...
would have at least been some. But loads of the stuff that they're saying is, like, really anti-capitalist in nature. Like, but I don't think they realize that.
See, that's the thing. I mean, when I was watching the show, I was expecting something like that, where I'm like, oh, there must be something on this that has rubbed these people the wrong way to bring that up.
I was expecting it to be loads of, like, this is real wrestling. It's not for woke blue-haired libtards, or I was expecting something like that.
Something. But
no,
even
that is in it.
I think it's unfair to call ECW, for MAGA, because it's like, at least for ECW you got matches. You got other stuff. You didn't get nothing for like an hour.
Oh my god! And, like, how much I criticize those WWE pay-per-views for having, like, 40-minute gaps between matches. What I wouldn't have given for a nice breezy 40-minute gap between matches watching this.
But even still, like, so I again, the memes and the jokes are quite funny because they genuinely are. But I think it's disingenuous to, like, use them as a critique, as a description rather, because it doesn't do justice to what's on the screen. Like, when you're watching Raw again, where there was like 2 minutes of wrestling, at least those segments, stuff was happening, stuff that you could actually see, stuff that you could actually engage with. Like, we've gone back and we've had a look at these Raws, and they're, the car crash TV, and it's an hour of, like, non-stop bang, 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 this happened and this happened. And you're like, cool, we have to talk about. On this show, I cannot tell you one thing that happened that wasn't someone driving or saying nonsense into the camera.
And even
all.
Like, like, people criticize certain aspects of WWE, even like when Vince was commentating and he was going, "What a maneuver! What a maneuver!" At least he was talking about the match. At least he wasn't there going, "What a deep, profound thought about the inherent meaningless of existence." What? No, maneuver. Tell me about the fucking maneuver.
You know what? You know how this would have worked, and we're going to do some fantasy. I don't think this has ever been done. Fantasy booking of Control Your Narrative, right? It's a standard indie wrestling show. Opens up standard indie wrestling show. Have Scotty 2 Hottie there. Scotty
Oh,
2 Hottie
perfect.
against someone, right? Have this match happening, right? And then as the match is going on, the feed slowly gets more and more corrupted, right? More and more corrupted as it's going on. And as it's going, it reveals to be EC3 talking absolute nonsense, right? And have that happening intermittently where the feed is constantly getting hijacked by EC3, and it's not like, it's not like a proactive thing. It's just you're watching the show and it's just getting more and more weird. And then it ends with some big angle that happens, clearly it builds up to something. There were something like that would actually make sense. I don't know if you've seen Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, or Too Many Cooks. Those kind of mid 2010s viral, where it's like
cooks,
exactly where it's like a standard thing and it gets more and more weird as you're going on. That's what they could have done. That would have been interesting. That actually would have done something,
It's
instead
like
of
we were
just
saying
nothing.
earlier. If you're going to be the cinematic promotion, then own it. Be the cinematic promotion.
And that's what I'm saying. Like that idea took me off on the spot straight away to just kind of go through it. And
I suspect somehow though you still spent twice as long on it as EC3 did.
As I said, and I wouldn't mind because EC3 is a great talent, great wrestler, good promo, but wrestling visionary, maybe not. Maybe not. The question I have on this, Martin, to finish it out, what could they have done differently? I mean, like, they're resetting here. Okay, so they're resetting here. They have X amount of money. They have the same talent. What could they have done differently? And don't say everything because that's the right answer. But
no, I mean, like, to be genuine, like they could have embraced the cinematic nature of what they were doing, and they could have used that to their advantage rather than almost being hindered by it by having every match be the same style, the same shooting, the same guy talking the same crap over it. I mean, if the whole thing is about controlling your narrative and about creativity and about freedom to express, whatever it is you want to express through wrestling, like, then they should have opened it up. It should, if it's going to be, this is the promotion run by wrestlers doing what they want, then they should have done that. They should have said, go and be as creative as possible. But instead they did a weird Fight Club ripoff. And the problem was, or one of the problems was that they do all this real deep, not like faux deep, philosophical talk about change and about how this is nothing you've ever seen and how this is different from everything else. And then when the match starts, it's a wrestling match. It's a wrestling match like any other wrestling match.
there's no super kicks. There's no.
Although no super. Well, no, there is, because you are in control.
And the match is against yourself.
And yeah, exactly. Before we go, the one thing I wanted to ask you was, one of the ways they tried to differentiate themselves was at their shows. Do you know the way you can have a meet and greet with a wrestler, like if you pay a wee bit extra? At their shows, one of the things they had was a rant room, and a rant room was you would pay a certain amount of money, and then you would be allowed into a room with another wrestler, typically one who you hate, and you would be allowed to say, scream, shout, sing, whatever you want at them for 3 minutes with no consequences.
Can I get that with Cody Rhodes?
I was just about to ask, who would you have that for, and what would you do?
Oh, Cody Rhodes and then Tony Khan. Can we do that? Can we? Let's tweet Tony Khan. I have an idea for you, buddy.
Bring back Control Your Narrative.
No, not that far. Bring back the rant room, I would pay legitimately serious money for that. Like more than a ticket for wrestling. For that.
Well,
Like
one of their like control your narrative, like it's
I
not
take it
like
all
I know
back,
that
Martin. I take it all back.
you love it now.
I love
I
it now.
I know they had some big names, but they were selling tickets for $99 for one of their
Oh,
shows.
okay.
Come on,
Imagine,
lads.
imagine to see what? To see
I,
shadows?
I know you're the anti-indie, but you are still an indie. Like, come on.
Still in. You know what though? There are two ways of looking at this, right? Either it is what we think it is, right? Like the most logical, what's Occam's razor, the most obvious answer is probably
Um,
true.
the
Yeah.
simplest answer is probably the truth.
So I do believe that this was just a vanity passion project that got way out of hand, or was a joke that went way too far, right? But on the other hand, it also could be genuinely a visionary thing that we just don't understand. So I leave this to you, audience members, to debate below. Please do. What do you think? Do you think this was like that we just don't get it? It's like modern art to some people where they're just like, you know, it's just
Do you know what? If
this could be.
if enough people in the comments say that, I'm willing to accept that because I went to see that film, and I used to be a film reviewer, and I went to see that film, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and when I
Right.
came out of it, I had literally no idea what had just happened.
I mean,
So
it can happen.
I'm
It can
I'm
happen,
fully
yeah.
prepared to admit that I'm just an idiot, and maybe it went completely over my head.
See, that's it. Like, so I would love to know what you guys think below. And if you're listening to this on the Spotify, go over to our YouTube channel, Nerd to Know Media, and then leave a comment below. Do we just misunderstand this? Is this like high art?
Is there a day hard CYN fan out there? Is there someone
Has to
walking
be.
around in a Control Your Narrative T-shirt, who rewatches the pay-per-views, who has
He only has
the
10 to watch.
framed a framed picture of himself at EC3 in the rant room? Like, is there a day hard CYN fan out there?
I wish. I really hope so.
If that's you, get in touch. We want
Yeah,
to
no.
talk to you, but only via Zoom.
So many questions. But that rant room, I genuinely think Tony Khan would be onto money there. Or WWE. Like 3 minutes just tell Cody Rhodes how bad he is and how he should be Stardust again. I think I could convince him in 3 minutes to be like, hey buddy, maybe it's time
He's
to put the face
he's
paint
so
back on.
smug though. He just spent it all like going, "Ah, good one, yeah, pal. I'll think about it."
I'll think of it.
Yeah,
Just keep paying. Just keep
like
paying to go
whenever,
back.
yeah, like a fella at a strip club just constantly putting fivers down. No, come on, come back here, sweetheart. I want to tell you why your entrance music is shit.
Come back here and I tell you what you should be Stardust.
Um,
We ain't done yet.
I was whenever I first saw that, I was like, oh, I'd love to get Punk in there and have a go with him. And then I was thinking, no, actually, do you know what? He would love that. That like he'd be all over that. He'd
Yeah.
be
You
he'd
can't hurt Punk like that. It
yeah,
wouldn't
he'd be
work that way.
discounting it. So
Yeah.
I actually don't like if I was going to do it. I don't. Who would I? I don't know who I'd have. Do you know what I wouldn't pick anyone I hate to give out to them.
Would you
I
not go
pick
for Vince?
No, God, no! I'd be afraid of being raped. Um,
Allegedly.
I'd go for wrestlers who just had done stuff that was inexplicable, and I just asked them to explain why did that happen in that match. Like I'd get Ric Flair in there, and I wouldn't like berate him or anything. I'd be like, why were you in a steel cage barbed wire match? And then the barbed wire came down, and then it wasn't a steel cage match anymore. Why did that happen?
You could ask the Dudleys about the electrified cage match.
Why is Devon's arse made of rubber? Is that why he didn't get electrocuted whenever he was dragging it along the cage as he climbed the ropes? Like, I'd love to ask questions like that.
All I'm saying is there's money to be made here, folks. Wrestling
No,
companies need to get on that.
I've got it. I've
Go on.
got it. The person that I would have in the rant room and would genuinely berate them and tell them how shit they are is the company that was responsible for the exploding ring at Revolution. That's who I'd have. I'd have the CEO in there telling them what a fucking arsehole he is.
I thought you were going to say Goldberg.
Oh, Goldberg!
Goldberg's
Okay.
the obvious answer, right?
Yeah, although Brett's berated him that much over the years. He's probably immune to it.
Oh, but see, not only could you get him with Bret Hart, you could also get him for like killing the Fiend.
Oh God, yeah. Or what was the WCW pay per view watch where we were like, we just had enough because Goldberg was like,
There was a lot of them. There was a lot of them.
no, but there was one that really annoyed us because it wasn't even about like bad booking or stupid like shoot storytelling. It was like a real fuck you to the fans. It was like Goldberg looking directly down the lens of the camera and being like, "Oh, I'm going home" or something. It was
Had to be something from 2001 anyway.
oh, it was one of the it was one of the very last pay per views.
Could have been Sin or Greed.
I think it was just before, because Sin and Greed actually started to get better because
So
they
then it would have
cleared
been
out.
it would have been the mid late 2000 then.
Yeah, it was one of the more traditional WCW ones. But,
I'll have to have a look. I'll find it again.
yeah,
I'll have a look this week and see.
I'd quiz him about that maybe.
That's fair. That's fair. But like, explain to me WCW 2000, please. just go on.
I know we only have 3 minutes at a time, but don't worry, I have £40,000 with me.
Just keep refilling that meter. But as I said, again, AEW, WWE, you can make money there super easy. Think about it, fans would love that. They'd love it. You know?
I think it would be a matter of days, if not hours, before either a fan or a wrestler was stabbed.
You obviously have them behind glass. Don't like.
Oh, like a seedy peep show. Oh,
I was more thinking.
that's for me, Orange Cassidy.
I was more thinking some kind of like, you know those movies
Like
where you have two-way glass.
Like a prison visit.
Yeah, there you go. Putting them in the same room as like unprotected is probably a terrible idea. But and also this was during COVID, so it's like it's even more of a bad idea, right? Surely. I don't know. Control your narrative. We still don't know what it was, folks. We really, really don't. But thank you so much.
We will get there, and that's why this is part 1 of a 40-part series.
That of a company that has 10 shows.
Four of which are crossovers.
And that they last an hour each. Actually, there's a channel I watch, Mauler, on YouTube, and he has a 15-hour review of The Force Awakens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he really hates The Force Awakens, as do I, as should you all. But I suppose you can make, hate content, so we could do it, but I'm not putting myself through that, Martin. I really haven't. I'm just not. I mean, control your narrative, I think it has its place in wrestling history for how weird it is, for how groundbreaking it is in certain ways, but also it's a cautionary tale that if EC3 shows up and he's like, I have an idea, and a warehouse appears, you run away.
It has its place in wrestling history, and its place is in wrestling history.
Exactly, thankfully. But Martin, is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, the Summer Games Fest is currently on, so as soon as we get off here, I'm going to log on to it and give it a go, because I hear a cheeky rumor. Everybody calm down, hold on to your butts. That new Power Wash Simulator DLC is being released, so
fantastic.
That's my summer.
Looking forward. That game is incredibly satisfying. Like House Flipper, also a really good game too. Folks, thank you so much for checking us out here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, the Wrestling Rewind, the WrestlingRewind.com, and of course, if you're checking us out on YouTube, please subscribe, like the video, leave your comments below. We'd love to hear from them. If this is your first time checking us out, thank you so much, and we'll be back next week, probably live. And we're going to do this more often here on YouTube and Twitch. So we will talk to you next week. Bye, guys.
Control your